A poor rancher risked his life for two Apache women. The chief's choice surprised everyone. The rancher woke before sunrise, as he always did. The land did not wait for comfort, and neither did hunger. His small wooden house stood alone on a wide stretch of dry ground, where the wind carried dust instead of rain. The roof creaked when the breeze grew strong, and the door had to be pushed just right to open, but it was all he had. He washed his face with cold water from a metal bowl, pulled on worn boots, and stepped outside while the sky was still gray. Life had never been easy for him. He owned only a few cattle, some old tools, and a tired horse that had worked beside him for years. Every day was a struggle to keep the ranch alive. Some seasons were kind, most were not. Still, he believed in honest work. He believed a man should take care of what was placed in his hands, no matter how small. The land around him was quiet but not peaceful. Everyone in the region lived with unspoken fear. His ranch sat close to Apache land, and stories traveled faster than the wind. Some were true, many were exaggerated, and others were simply born from fear. People in nearby settlements spoke in low voices whenever the Apache were mentioned. They warned each other to stay alert, to lock doors early, to never wander alone. The rancher listened to these warnings, but he did not let them rule his heart. He had grown up hearing the same stories, yet he had also seen how easily fear turned into cruelty. He knew that land did not belong to one man alone. It held memories, bloodlines, and history far older than his small ranch. As the sun slowly rose, he began his morning work. He checked the fence, repaired a loose post with a hammer that had been used by his father before him, and counted his cattle. Each animal mattered. Losing even one could mean weeks without proper food. His stomach growled, but he ignored it. Work came first. By mid-morning, the heat grew heavy. He paused to drink water and look across the open land. From where he stood, he could see far into the distance. That was when he noticed something unusual. A movement near the edge of the land, slow and uncertain, not like an animal. He narrowed his eyes and watched carefully. At first he thought it might be a wounded deer. Then he saw a second shape beside the first, two figures, human. They moved as if each step caused pain. His heart beat faster. People did not wander into this area without reason. Every warning he had ever heard rushed into his mind. He could turn away. He could pretend he had seen nothing. That would be the safest choice. No one would blame him for protecting himself. He was poor, alone, and had no one to defend him if trouble came. Yet his feet moved before his thoughts could stop them. He walked slowly, making sure not to appear threatening. As he came closer, he could see they were women. Their clothes were torn and dusty. Their faces showed exhaustion and fear. One of them leaned heavily on the other, barely able to stand. They froze when they noticed him, eyes wide, ready to run even though their bodies could hardly move. The rancher raised his hand slightly, showing he meant no harm. He spoke calmly, using simple words, careful with his tone. He did not step too close. He remembered how fear could make even kind gestures seem dangerous. The women exchanged a glance. They whispered to each other in their own language. Their eyes never left him. He could see the question in their faces. Was this man another danger or their last hope? He pointed toward his ranch house far behind him. He gestured to water, to shade. His movements were slow and respectful. He did not touch them. He waited. Minutes passed that felt like hours. Finally, one of the women nodded. It was a small movement, but it carried great weight. He felt a tightness in his chest loosen just a little. He guided them back toward his home, walking beside them, not in front. Every step he expected someone to appear on the horizon. Every sound made him tense, but the land remained quiet as if holding its breath. Inside the house, the air was cooler. He offered them water first, then bread. He had very little food, but he gave what he could. Watching them drink, he saw how badly they needed help. Their hands shook. Their shoulders sagged as if the strength had finally left them. He wanted to ask questions, but he did not. Not yet. He knew fear closed mouths. Instead, he showed them a place to rest. He cleaned small injuries as best he could with what little he had. His hands were rough but gentle. He worked in silence, focused, careful not to cause pain. As the day went on, worry settled deeper into his mind. Helping them was the right thing to do, but it could also bring serious consequences. If others found out, they might accuse him of betrayal. If Apache warriors came looking, they might not listen to explanations. The land did not forgive mistakes easily. Still, when he looked at the women, he felt no regret. He saw not symbols or stories, but human beings who were tired, frightened, and far from safety. Outside, the sun began its slow descent. Shadows stretched across the land. Evening was the most dangerous time. Sounds traveled farther. People moved more quietly. He checked the area around his house, making sure no one was watching. His heart pounded as he scanned the horizon. He returned inside and sat on a wooden chair near the door. The women rested silently. One of them met his eyes and gave a small nod of gratitude. That single gesture stayed with him. As darkness fell, the rancher understood that his life had already changed. There was no turning back to the simple routine he had known that morning. Whatever came next, he would face it. Outside, the wind moved across the land, carrying stories yet to be told. Night settled over the ranch like a heavy blanket. The small house stood quiet under the wide sky, with only the sound of wind brushing against the walls. Inside, the rancher remained awake. He sat near the door, listening, his senses sharp. Every creak of wood, every distant sound made his heart beat faster. He knew that danger often came quietly. The two women slept on the floor near the corner of the room, wrapped in old blankets. Their breathing was slow but uneven, as if their bodies were still unsure whether it was safe to rest. The rancher watched them for a moment, then looked away, giving them the dignity of privacy. He did not see them as strangers anymore. He saw them as lives placed in his care. He wondered how they had ended up here. He imagined the long walk, the fear, the pain in their feet and backs. Whatever they were running from must have been serious. No one chose this land without reason. Still, he did not ask. He believed that when people were ready, they would speak. Before dawn, he rose quietly and stepped outside. The air was cold and the sky was filled with stars. He checked the land around his house carefully. No footprints, no signs of movement. That brought some relief, but not comfort. Relief never lasted long in places like this. As the first light appeared, he prepared a simple meal. He boiled water, warmed bread, and added what little dried food he had left. When the women woke, they looked startled at first, then calmer when they saw him. He nodded and placed the food between them. They hesitated, then ate slowly, grateful but cautious. One of the women spoke first. Her voice was soft, weak from exhaustion. She used broken words, mixing signs and gestures when language failed. The rancher listened carefully, nodding when he understood. He did not interrupt. They explained that they had been separated from their people after trouble broke out near a distant area. Fear spread quickly and confusion followed. In the chaos, they ran. They hid. They walked until their strength nearly left them. They had no idea where they were anymore, only that they needed to survive one more day. The rancher felt a quiet ache in his chest. He had known hunger, fear, and isolation, but hearing it from them made it heavier. These were not stories told around fires. This was real pain sitting right in front of him. He told them they could rest for the day. He explained that moving during daylight was risky. People watched roads and open land when the sun was high. Night would offer more cover. They nodded in agreement. They trusted his judgment now, and that trust weighed on him more than fear ever had. As the day passed, tension grew beyond the ranch. Far away, people had noticed the women were missing. Questions were asked. Voices grew loud. Groups began to search, driven by worry, anger, and pride. Each hour that passed made the situation more dangerous. The rancher sensed it before he saw it. The air felt different. Birds scattered suddenly. His horse shifted uneasily. He stepped outside and scanned the horizon. Dust rose far away, not much but enough to tell him people were moving. His heart sank. He returned inside and explained the situation as clearly as he could. He told them that people were looking. He said staying hidden was important. The women listened closely. Fear returned to their eyes, but this time it was mixed with trust. They did not panic. They followed his lead. He guided them to a hidden space behind the house where old supplies were stored. It was cramped and dark, but it was concealed well. He showed them how to remain quiet, how to signal if they needed help. Then he closed the space carefully and stepped away. Moments later, riders appeared in the distance. The rancher stood in the open, hands at his sides, face calm though his heart raced. He had practiced this kind of calm his whole life. Poverty taught patience. Hard land taught silence. The riders approached and asked questions. Their tone was sharp, suspicious. They asked if he had seen anyone pass through. He answered honestly but carefully. He said he had seen nothing unusual. His voice did not shake. He did not lie loudly or nervously. He spoke simply. They studied him. Some believed him, others did not. But there was nothing they could prove. After a tense moment, they moved on. Only after they disappeared did the rancher allow himself to breathe deeply. As the sun lowered again, he brought the women out quietly. They looked tired but relieved. One of them touched her chest and bowed her head slightly in thanks. The rancher nodded back, uncomfortable with praise. He did not feel brave. He felt responsible. They spoke more that evening, sharing bits of their lives. One had a family waiting. The other had lost much already. Their voices were calm, but their eyes carried heavy stories. The rancher shared little of himself. He spoke of the land, of hard seasons, of working alone. That seemed enough. Night came again, and with it new danger. This time the sound came closer. Footsteps, voices, not many but enough. The rancher stiffened. He knew that if they searched the property carefully, they might find something. He made a decision quickly. He told the women they had to leave soon, not to run blindly, but to move carefully under cover of darkness. He explained a safe path that avoided roads and open land. It would be hard, but safer than staying. The women hesitated. They did not want to leave him to face trouble alone. That moment surprised him more than anything. Even in fear, they thought of him. He assured them he would be fine. He gave them water, food, and his best directions. As they prepared to leave, one of them took his hand briefly. No words were needed. They slipped into the darkness, moving like shadows, guided by instinct and hope. The rancher stood alone again, watching until they vanished from sight. His chest felt tight, but his heart was steady. He knew that the danger was not over. In fact, it had only begun. Somewhere nearby, others were closing in, and soon the truth would come to light. The rancher did not sleep that night. Even after the women disappeared into the darkness, his mind stayed alert. He sat by the small window, watching the land under the pale light of the moon. Every shadow looked like a person. Every sound felt closer than it truly was. He knew that once choices were made, they could not be taken back. Just before morning, he heard voices again. This time they were not far away. They were close enough that he could hear words carried by the wind. He stood up slowly and stepped outside. The sky was just beginning to change color, the dark blue turning gray. Dust rose in the distance and shapes moved toward his land. He counted them quietly. Several riders. Calm, steady, organized. These were not angry settlers or random searchers. These were Apache warriors. His heart beat hard, but he did not run. He could have hidden. He could have slipped away before they reached him, but he knew that would only make things worse. Running would look like guilt, and more than that, he felt something deeper pulling him to stay. He had acted with honesty, and now he would face whatever came. He walked forward until he stood in the open, far from his house, where he could be clearly seen. He placed his hands where they were visible and waited. The riders approached slowly. Their faces were serious, their posture strong. They stopped a short distance away. No one spoke at first. The silence felt heavy, filled with meaning. Finally, one of them spoke. His voice was calm but firm. He asked if the rancher had seen two women. The rancher did not answer immediately. He took a breath, steadying himself. He knew that this moment mattered. A single wrong word could change everything. He told the truth. He said that two women had come to his land injured and tired. He said he had given them water, food, and rest. He said he had done it because they were human and in need. He did not beg. He did not make excuses. He did not blame anyone. The warriors listened carefully. Their faces did not change, but their eyes sharpened. One of them stepped forward and asked where the women were now. The rancher explained that they had left during the night. He described the direction, not to betray them, but to show that he was not hiding anything. He made it clear that he had not forced them to leave. He had helped them choose safety. The silence returned. The warriors exchanged glances. They spoke quietly among themselves in their own language. The rancher waited, his chest tight. He knew that whatever decision they made, he had no control over it now. At last, the leader spoke again. He said the women were under the protection of their people. He said the rancher would come with them to speak to the chief. The words landed heavily. The rancher nodded. He did not argue. He walked back to his house, grabbed his hat, and returned. He did not pack anything. He did not know if he would come back. The journey was long and silent. The land passed slowly beneath the rising sun. The rancher walked beside the riders, feeling the weight of every step. His thoughts drifted to his small house, his cattle, the life he might be leaving behind. He felt fear, but also a strange calm. He had done what he believed was right. When they reached the Apache camp, many eyes turned toward him. People whispered. Children stared. Elders watched quietly. He felt exposed, like every step he had ever taken was being judged. He was led to a central area where the chief would hear his words. He stood there alone while time passed. No one rushed. Everything moved at its own pace. Eventually, the chief arrived. His presence filled the space without effort. He sat, calm and steady, and looked at the rancher closely. His gaze was not angry but deep, as if he could see beyond appearances. The rancher was told to speak. He told his story from the beginning. He spoke of the land, of seeing the women, of their condition. He explained his choice in simple words. He said he did not act for reward, protection, or favor. He acted because leaving them would have gone against everything he believed. The chief listened without interruption. Then the women were brought forward. They stood taller now, cleaner, stronger than when the rancher had first seen them. They spoke clearly. They described his actions honestly. They said he did not harm them. They said he showed patience and respect. They said he gave help when help was dangerous. As they spoke, the camp grew quiet. The rancher did not look at the chief. He looked at the ground. He felt small but not ashamed. Whatever happened next would not change what he had done. The chief leaned back slightly, thinking. The weight felt endless. The rancher's hands trembled just a little, but he kept them still. At last, the chief spoke. He said that many men spoke of honor, but few showed it when fear stood in the way. He said that helping the weak, even when it brings danger, reveals true character. He said that the rancher had crossed a line that many were afraid to approach, not as an enemy, but as a human being. The camp listened closely. The chief then said that the rancher would not be harmed. Instead, he would be given safe passage home. A quiet ripple moved through the crowd. Some looked surprised, others nodded slowly. The rancher lifted his head, stunned. He had prepared himself for the worst. He had not imagined this. Before leaving, the chief spoke one last time. He said that actions build bridges where words fail. He said that the land remembers those who treat life with respect. The rancher was escorted back, not as a prisoner but as a guest. The journey home felt different. The weight on his chest eased, replaced by something warm and unfamiliar. When he reached his land, the sun was already low. His house stood as he had left it. The fence still leaned. The cattle still waited. But the rancher was not the same man who had stood there days before. He understood now that his choice had set something in motion, something larger than fear, something that could not be undone. And though peace had been granted, he knew this was not the end. It was only the turning point. The days after the rancher returned home felt strange and quiet. The land looked the same, the sky still wide, the wind still dry, but something inside him had shifted. He moved through his routine more slowly now, as if each task carried new meaning. When he repaired the fence or fed the cattle, his thoughts often drifted back to the Apache camp, to the chief's steady eyes, and to the moment when fear had loosened its grip on his heart. News travels quickly in small regions. Within days, nearby settlers began to hear whispers. Some said the rancher had been taken and spared. Others said he had helped Apache women and lived to tell the tale. The stories changed with each telling, growing larger, more dramatic. Some people looked at him with suspicion when they passed his land. Others looked at him with curiosity. A few nodded quietly as if they understood more than they said. The rancher did not explain himself. He did not defend his actions or seek approval. He focused on his work. Still, the tension around him grew. He could feel it when he rode into town for supplies. Conversations stopped when he entered a room. Eyes followed him. He remained polite, calm, and brief. One afternoon, as the sun hung low, a visitor arrived at his ranch. The rancher noticed the figure approaching from far away and felt his muscles tighten. But as the rider came closer, he recognized the familiar posture and calm presence. It was one of the Apache messengers. The rancher stepped forward, open and steady. The messenger greeted him respectfully and handed him a small token, simple but carefully made. It was a sign of safe passage and goodwill. The messenger explained that the chief wished the rancher to know that his actions had not been forgotten. After the messenger left, the rancher stood alone, holding the token in his hand. He felt something he had rarely felt before, a sense of belonging to something larger than his small patch of land. He did not see it as power or protection, but as responsibility. Not long after, trouble came from another direction. A group of settlers, fueled by fear and misunderstanding, decided to confront the rancher. They arrived one evening, their faces tight with anger and confusion. They accused him of endangering everyone by helping people they did not understand. They said his actions could bring consequences upon the whole area. The rancher listened without interruption. He let them speak until their voices ran low. Then he answered quietly. He said he had helped 2 people in need. He said he would make the same choice again. He did not raise his voice. He did not insult them. His calm unsettled them more than anger ever could. Some of the men scoffed. Others looked uncertain. They had come expecting argument or fear. Instead, they found resolve. One older man stepped forward. He had lived in the region for decades and had seen many seasons of conflict and peace. He said softly that fear had never built anything lasting. He said that courage often looked different than people expected. The group slowly dispersed, leaving behind dust and silence. That night, the rancher sat outside under the stars. He thought about how easily people chose sides without knowing the whole story. He realized that his choice had placed him between worlds, not fully belonging to either, yet connected to both. Days later, another unexpected moment arrived. The 2 Apache women returned, this time not in fear but with purpose. They approached his land openly, accompanied by others from their community. The rancher recognized them immediately. They looked stronger now, their steps confident. They greeted him with warmth and respect. One of them explained that the chief had allowed them to return to thank him properly. They brought food, blankets, and help. They did not see it as payment but as balance. Together, they worked on the ranch. Fences were repaired faster than ever before. Water was carried. Land was cleared. Laughter, soft but real, filled the air. The rancher felt something lift from his chest that he had not known was there. As they worked, they shared stories. Not heavy stories of pain, but simple ones of family, seasons, and memories tied to the land. The rancher listened more than he spoke. He realized how little he truly knew and how much there was to learn when fear stepped aside. Word of this cooperation spread. Slowly, attitudes began to change. Not everywhere, not all at once, but enough to be noticed. People began to understand that respect did not weaken a man, it strengthened him. The rancher did not become rich. His land did not suddenly turn green. His life remained simple and demanding, but it became fuller. He understood now that bravery was not a single act, but a daily choice. A choice to remain open when it was easier to close off. A choice to see people instead of stories. As seasons passed, the rancher became known not for wealth or power, but for something far rarer. He was known as a man who stood firm without hatred, who chose humanity without expectation. And though challenges still lay ahead, he had learned something that could never be taken from him. One act of courage had created a path, and that path was still unfolding. Time moved forward as it always does, but it carried the weight of what had happened. The rancher continued his life on the land, rising before sunrise, working until his body ached, and resting only when night forced him to stop. On the surface, nothing had changed much. His house was still small, his tools were still worn, his cattle were still few, yet beneath all of that his life had taken a new direction. People in the nearby settlements spoke of him differently now. Some still did not agree with what he had done, but fewer spoke with anger. Many spoke with quiet respect. They had seen that trouble did not follow his actions. Instead, a strange calm had settled over the region. It was not perfect peace, but it was something better than constant fear. The rancher did not try to become a leader or a symbol. He avoided attention. When people asked him questions, he answered simply. He said he had done what any human should do. He said he did not want praise. That honesty made his words stronger than any speech ever could. One season, drought hit the land harder than usual. The soil cracked and water grew scarce. For the rancher, this was a familiar struggle. He tightened his belt and worked harder, but this time help came from an unexpected place. Members of the Apache community arrived with knowledge of hidden water paths and ways to protect the land during harsh months. They did not arrive as saviors or demands makers. They came as neighbors. Together, they found solutions that kept both land and people alive. Working side by side, old fears faded further. Children watched their elders cooperate instead of argue. Stories began to change. Where there had once been warnings, there were now lessons. The rancher often thought about the moment he had first seen the two women walking toward his land. He understood now how small that moment had been in time and how large it had become in meaning. One choice had grown into many. Years passed. The rancher aged quietly. His hair grayed, his steps slowed, but his presence remained steady. He became someone people turned to when problems needed calm thinking instead of loud words. He never claimed wisdom, but he listened carefully, and that was enough. One day he was invited to a gathering near Apache land. It was not a command or test. It was an invitation. He accepted without hesitation. At the gathering, the chief spoke before many people. He spoke of history, of mistakes, and of the future. He spoke of a poor rancher who had chosen humanity over fear. He did not use the rancher's name to raise him above others, but to remind everyone of what was possible. The chief then made a choice that surprised many. He declared that the rancher would be welcomed as a trusted friend of the community, not because of land or power, but because of character. It was not a title, but a recognition. The rancher stood quietly, overwhelmed. He did not feel proud in a loud way. He felt grateful. As time continued, the rancher passed his land to younger hands. He spent more time sitting outside, watching sunsets, listening to the wind. Children from different backgrounds visited him, drawn by stories and curiosity. He told them not of danger or fear, but of choices. He told them that courage often feels like fear standing still. He told them that doing the right thing rarely feels safe, but it always feels true. When the rancher passed away, there were no grand monuments, no loud ceremonies, but people came from many places. They stood together in silence, honoring a life that had quietly changed many others. The land remembered him. Long after, his story was still told, not as a legend but as a reminder that even the poorest person can shape the future. That one act of kindness can cross divides built over generations. And that sometimes the bravest choice is simply to see another human being and help them.